All right. Robert Jan van Pelt, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me and for pronouncing my name in the correct manner.
But we're going to get into your evidence soon, but what would the Holocaust denier have said to the claim that, oh, well, that didn't necessarily mean that there was a genocide or a Holocaust taking place, that these newer gas chambers were built with these incineration units built specifically for the killing of Jews and other people?
Now we have to distinguish here now between Auschwitz and the Operation Reinhardt camps. That's Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, and the most important ones, because in the case of Auschwitz, they actually used a pesticide, the cyanide pesticide, as the gas in the gas chamber. So immediately they jump to the proposition, the possibility that these gas chambers were intended for delousing purposes. Now, the problem in this is that that even people with the best of intention, or at least the best of intention in this particular narrow kind of field, this field of human endeavor that is interpreting the Holocaust, quite often walk into the trap that when they hear the word gas chamber, they immediately assume it is a homicidal, a genocidal gas chamber. No one less than Prime Minister Netanyahu did that. In around 15 years ago, I was asked to authenticate a collection of blueprints, or some 80 blueprints that were found in Berlin in some apartment, and these were all drawings relating to basically the making of concentration camps, inclusive a set of drawings from Auschwitz. And in the drawings, this drawing set was a drawing of a delousing building in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Yeah, and a delousing building is you brought there, or stuff can be brought there. You have to undress, and then the people are being showered. But at the same time, their clothes are brought to a gas chamber called Gaskammer, which is next to the showers. You're being showered, clothing in the gas chamber, and then at the end of it, you are reunited with your clothing, so to speak, and you dress in your clothing that has been fumigated, that has been deloused with cyanide. Yeah, and then you ventilate, and then it's fine to wear again. And then you basically walk out of this as a living person. But Netanyahu, when all of this whole pack after my authentication arrived at Yad Vashem, because they were the destination of this big find, Netanyahu went to see these things and held up the drawing of the delousing barrack, for the delousing of clothing and mattresses and so on with cyanide, Zyklon B, and said, these are the gas chambers where our nation was murdered. Yeah. And he immediately fell into that trap.
So he made a mistake there.
He made a mistake, but if you now go today to the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg, where they actually have a facsimile of this drawing of the delousing station, the label says exactly the same. So this is territory where people jump to conclusions. They hear the word gas chamber and immediately assume it's a gas chamber to murder people, while the great majority of gas chambers were actually produced in the 1940s, 30s and 40s for delousing purposes. Now, deniers will then say all gas chambers are for delousing purposes. And what makes it then, even more tricky is that when you look at these blueprints of these buildings, whenever you have a space that was used as a homicidal gas chamber, it's never labeled as such. There is no label at it whatsoever, or it is called morgue, Leichenkammer, or Leichenkeller. So, of course, the Germans were not the German architects were not announcing themselves, this is an homicidal gas chamber. They didn't put that on the drawings because there was no need to do so.
So, We obviously know the Holocaust existed. We know that they did create those new gas chambers. We know what was going on there. We don't need to go through. Obviously, there are many, many people who gave eyewitness accounts of what was happening. But this is where your work becomes...
I interrupt you there. If I'm an Holocaust denier and I hear the word eyewitness account,
You'd say who could...
say, you know, the testimonies are rehearsed. Yeah, the testimonies are it cannot have happened. They're invented. They are the product of post-war manipulation. Yeah? And this is one of the reasons, in order to, when I entered the courtroom and I created a 750-page expert report, that I said, okay, just in some way not to basically have to argue that, I'm only going to use testimonies that were recorded immediately after the end of the Holocaust, before there could be what we would call cross-contamination of people talking to each other. So I want testimony that comes from somewhere in Norway, and I know that person did not know what was happening in Oswiecim, in Auschwitz, in the forensic investigation at the time, because he was sitting in a POW camp in Norway. So
before there could be some sort of collusion amongst everybody to come up with the same story. You're saying, let's look at all these different narratives before there was any chance that everybody could have come together and come up with this fabricated lie.
And so I said, my cutoff point is the moment that for the first time a plan and the plans of the gas chambers of Auschwitz are published. The moment that plan is published, which is in 1946, in the first history of Auschwitz, on the basis of testimony and plans, I say at that moment, I'm not going to use any evidence that comes afterwards, not because I don't trust it, because I do trust it in general. I mean, I've interviewed many survivors and so on, and you're looking at convergence of evidence, but I simply do not want to get in a prolonged fight about could this have been on the basis of hearsay or not.